Looks good.
Right. All right, so it is 7. So I'll get everybody to go on mute if you're not already muted, just so there's no background noise or anything like that. My name is Catherine, and I'm the Climate and Energy Outreach Coordinator for the town of Mahone Bay. Welcome, and thank you for being here this evening to our virtual open house for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Action Plan. We're very excited to have produced this draft plan and be sharing it with you. Just a second, my screens are a little bit confusing right now. Let's pull it here. All right. Yeah, so good evening. Just a little overview of how tonight will go. We're recording the session for people who weren't able to make it this evening. So I am just briefly going to go through the presentation slides. It'll be about 20 to 30 minutes, so hopefully it's not too much of me just chatting on. But if you have any questions as we go, feel free to write them down, put them in the chat. And then after the presentation, we'll have a nice time for questions and discussion.
No.
And just
There's no sound. I can't. There's nothing.
You can't get into it?
Well, I got everything up and running, but there's no sound.
Catherine, since you're the host, he can't hear, so you might have to mute him, but you should be able to. Because he just said he couldn't hear us, so I presume he doesn't. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. All right. So I have been working with the town since December of 2019, and I started this project when I began with the town, which both my position and the project was funded through the province's Low Carbon Communities Fund, or partially funded. So we were really excited to get that resource to begin working on this project. And over the past year, we have heard from many residents and businesses about their interest to go green and make sustainable changes through different outreach activities. So we've held a couple of focus groups, and many of you might have been part of our greenhouse gas survey that went around. So we're very pleased to have worked on this draft report and be sharing it with you. So a little bit of how we kind of came to this project and how it came about. On February 12th in 2019, Council recognized the climate change emergency by resolution, which led to amendments to the strategic plan and really showed the town's commitment to mitigating climate change and working towards these efforts. So in a rural coastal community, we see the effects of climate change already. We have the spring floods. The data shows that coastal communities are almost most at risk from continued sea level rise. So by making this resolution and taking the steps forward, we can really do our part and hopefully be leaders against the fight of climate change. So this resolution kind of stemmed the town into joining the Transition 2050 program, which is with Clean Nova Scotia and Sustainable Solutions Group, along with 5 other municipalities in Nova Scotia. And we're also part of the Partners for Climate Protection program. So we're excited to participate in this program and move the project forward. We hope that the town of Mahone Bay can take a leadership role in climate mitigation and help to work with the surrounding municipalities and help mitigate impacts, not just in our own jurisdiction, but help cross boundaries there. So as part of the Partners for Climate Protection program, kind of the town's duty in this program is to reach these 5 milestones. So milestone 1 is to create a baseline emissions inventory and forecast. So by working with the Transition 2050 group, we were able to take a whole bunch of data, building data, energy data, housing data, everything, put it into a model and kind of create a baseline emissions for 2016. So we also did a household survey, which also provided us a lot of insight into private household use of fuels, electricity, vehicle usage and driving. So that definitely supplemented this baseline and is a great resource for the town moving forward to see what needs and what barriers we might meet as we try to reduce those emissions. So that was the first milestone that we had to meet, and we did meet it. I'll touch briefly on it in the presentation here, and it's also detailed more in the draft plan. The second milestone was to set emissions reduction targets. And so we have aligned ourselves with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change target, which is a reduction of 45% emissions below the 2010 levels by 2030. So this was our 2030 target, but we also, being part of Transition 2050, we ultimately want to be a carbon neutral community by 2050. So these are our overarching goals and targets. But as you see, as we go through the presentation and in the plan, you see that action, we actually have individual targets as well. And I'll touch on that as we go along. But milestone 3 here to develop a local action plan is where we are today. So that's what I'm presenting and we'll be discussing later this evening. And this plan will push us forward into implementing.
So do you know where the sound settings are supposed to be?
It's different from that.
The only thing I see is mute.
That's that one, that one.
That one.
Yeah. Intel on there, Intel.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure how to mute everybody if you're not already muted.
Nope,
There's no-
looked like he had it resolved, but
There he is. Sorry about that. So yeah, so the creation of this local action plan again just drives us forward to help meet milestone 4 and 5, which is implementing the action plan and monitoring progress and reports. So that's kind of the background about how this project came to be, where we are in the process and where we hope to go. And diving into our 2016 emissions inventory. So I tried to find kind of a way that we could visualize what a ton of carbon dioxide looks like. And it's kind of difficult to explain. The best thing I could kind of visualize was they describe them as carbon dioxide cubes. And if you have a 27 foot by 27 foot by 27 foot cube, that is essentially what a ton of carbon dioxide would look like. So as the town's emissions profile, we have 15,510 tons of carbon dioxide that was emitted in 2016. This is roughly 15 tons per capita. So it seems like a lot, but compared to Nova Scotia and Canada, we're below the curve, so we're already doing pretty good. Nova Scotia in 2017 was at 16.4 tons per capita, and the average Canadian was 19.6. So we're doing well there, but of course still have ways to go. And as I mentioned, we are aligning with that IPCC target, which requires a baseline of 2010. So the numbers get a little, hopefully not too confusing here, but so just to make sure that we were sticking with that baseline, that we could make good comparisons, I just looked at the Nova Scotia baseline from 2010 and 2016 and noticed what their emission difference was and just equated that to Mahone Bay as well, which puts us at a 2010 baseline of about 19,000 tons. So with this information and with what we have in 2016, we already saw that decrease in emissions there. In order to meet our IPCC target, we do still have to reduce about 5,000 tons of CO2. And of course, we still have 15,000 tons if we want to become a carbon neutral community. So this graph down here on the bottom just kind of outlines where our emissions lies. We can see that our electricity sector, though we are very fortunate to have our own utility that sources about 60% renewable energy, it is still our largest source of emissions because of where the other sources of fossil fuel based generation. The second sources are transportation, so the oil, diesel, gasoline that we use for transporting personal and commercial vehicles. Buildings is the third highest source, so this wouldn't be it would be anything that you wouldn't be like flipping a switch for electricity. So if you heat your home through oil or something like that, that's what is included in the building's emission there. Solid waste and wastewater are smaller contributions, but again, they're there. So we did want to include them in the plan and do have some actions associated with those as well. So as part of the modeling project of this, we wanted to, they took our 2016 baseline year, which is to the left here, and modeled out what our emissions would look like if we did nothing. So if nothing was done in this plan, this is our business as usual forecast, we can see that we do actually have a reduction in emissions, but we're still a very long ways away from meeting those 2050 carbon neutral goals. And this just also gives you another breakdown of where our emissions are coming from, what sectors they're related to. So the blue for commercial, orange for transportation, the residential section, waste and industrial. And then to the right of this, I think, I'm not sure if it's flipped around for you guys, but you can see the fuel source that's related to the emissions. So again, the grid electricity is the highest fuel source of emissions. Followed by gasoline, fuel oil, diesel. And then this non-energy one here is essentially waste. So as we dispose of waste, there are the landfill emissions and things like that associated there. So all of this information, the town looked at this information, the data, the sectors that had the highest emissions, and through different outreach activities and the survey that we had, we were able to see what sectors we needed to prioritize, what community members were interested in the town pursuing. And we developed a list of about 16 different actions. And so our overall goals, we have those targets, but the overall strategy, I suppose, is electrification and decarbonization. So because we own our own utility, we are fortunate that we can choose to source more renewable energy or produce our own renewable energy, cleaner energy. So by decarbonizing our utility and electrifying things such as home heating that would normally be on oil, or transportation that's normally gasoline or diesel, if we switch that to electric to use more renewable energy, we can see a lot of emission savings. So I'll go through the actions that we have highlighted in the plan. And they're highlighted in sectors. So this one is heat and building efficiency. There's a lot of text on this slide, so I'm not going to go through all of it, but it does give you guys an idea of how the plan is laid out. So under each action, so let's say, action 2, energy efficient retrofits for municipal buildings. Under each action, we have a sub-target. So our target for this is 100% of existing municipal buildings to be retrofit to net zero by 2030. So we are already taking steps towards this. You know, there's town hall renovations, which are making use of some efficiency upgrades, and the new fire hall will be above efficiency standards. So it's really exciting. But you can kind of see, so each action is stated, there's targets so that we can measure that action going forward. And then if you're interested in knowing more about these, of course, we can talk about that in the questions, or you can have a look through the plan. But then there is more detail about Mahone Bay's approach on how to achieve these action items. So I'll briefly just touch on each one of these, and if something lights your interest, you can mark it down and we can talk more about it as well. So these first ones for heat and building efficiency include the new building standards. So I think Canada in general has a new building standard that has come out in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. And then, as I mentioned, retrofits to municipal buildings. Action 3 is electrification and energy efficient retrofits for the private sector. And then the following action would be this same thing, except for home heating systems and residential retrofits. So these actions are essentially to help institutions, industry, commercial buildings and homes to transfer their maybe oil use to electrification, which we hope to power by renewable energy and cleaner energy for emission savings. So this action I did just put over here to the side. If you're not already aware, as part of this action, the town has been working with AREA, the Alternative Resource Energy Authority, to create this home program, which is it's basically a one-stop shop for heat pump installation. So it's a financing, installation, and maintenance program. If you're interested, there is a website there beside it. But that's one of the things that we have come up with to try to help homeowners lower the financial barrier for homeowners to have this efficient home heating system in their home. So the next sector of electricity supply, action 5 was to develop a community solar garden. So we do hope to have about 20% of the load supplied by solar. Many of you might be already familiar with this project, and the town has continued to work towards it, and we do hope to have a much more detailed update and schedule of events and things for that coming up in 2021. Action 6 is to assess opportunities for other renewable energy. So we are again fortunate. We have the Ellers House Wind Farm, which Mahone Bay is, I believe, a 10% owner in. Or Dylan, you can correct me if that. Yeah, okay, 10%. And we are always looking for new opportunities to add more wind energy. We have really been grateful to work with AREA, who has helped us through these kind of assessing new opportunities as they come up. And you know, technology changes so fast that we don't know what's coming down for new opportunities. But as part of this action, you know, assessing those will be a priority to try to decarbonize our grid. So for the next sector is transportation. Last year, we went through a good process with CBCL Consulting to develop a transportation plan with many active transportation options within that plan. And so part of this plan is to begin implementing those items around town. And ideally, we just hope that we can make Mahone Bay more walkable, more pedestrian friendly, more safe, so that we can see more people within the town limits choosing an active transportation where they wouldn't be emitting so many fossil fuels with vehicle, and it would reduce the amount of vehicles, especially during tourist season. Action 8 is assess community transit and shuttle options. So I know there have been a couple studies done in Lunenburg County, and with just where Mahone Bay is located and how it's located, there are opportunities for some kind of mode sharing, car share, transit option, but we just have to make sure that it's feasible for Mahone Bay. So part of this action will be having, you know, staff continue to assess opportunities like this. Action 9 is to install 8 electric vehicle charging stations. It's very specific because we already have the plans in place and we're pretty excited. These should come through and be installed maybe this spring or summer. And along with that, implement an electric vehicle car share program and encourage vehicle electrification. So the car share program was something that we started thinking about last year. We were really interested in it as a way for people to get familiar with the electric vehicle cars, their distance, the feel of them, the drive of them. But when COVID hit, it kind of put a little bit of a damper on that. And, you know, a lot of people probably didn't want to be sharing vehicles and didn't know how that would really go. But it's still something that we're interested in at least looking into, and different things to help people get familiar with electric vehicles. And yeah. And on that note, actually, we just heard from Clean Nova Scotia's Next Ride program that they'll actually be in Mahone Bay on March 20th from 10:30 to 3:30. They have a Tesla Model 3 and I think it's a Hyundai Kona electric vehicle that they're offering test drives. if you're interested, you can go to their website, yournextridens.com, and book your test drive if you're interested in that. And the last transportation action is to implement a shop local campaign. So this just encourages people to shop within the town limits, where we can hopefully make it more walkable, more bikeable, and reduce out of town travel and any delivery emissions. So if there's something that you're ordering online that we maybe could have in town, it would, help save those emissions as well. And so waste and wastewater, though it was a lower priority for emissions reduction, it's still there, and we still want to make sure that we're doing our part to reduce emissions where we can. Action 12 is to implement the waste reduction campaign. So a lot of this will be an educational campaign and a lot of time for staff to work with the Municipal Joint Service Board and Region 6 to find ways that we can meet these sub-targets here. For the water system update, so this is a lot of our asset management. So as infrastructure becomes outdated, we hope to update it with more high efficient infrastructure. So upgrade to high efficiency pumps by 2035 will help reduce energy use and decrease water volume. So those are all great contributors to reducing emissions. This is the last slide for our action item. And this next one, the land use, is a little bit different. So it's actually more of a carbon sink. So instead of, I don't think I explained that right, but to foster trees, gardens, and green spaces on municipal and private properties, and to target a net zero loss. So if we can maintain our tree cover, it'll continue to sequester carbon dioxide. A lot of the town is owned privately, so if we can help community members be stewards of their land and things like that, if we can just preserve our green spaces, it'll help with reducing emissions a little bit. And the last actions here are policy and governance. So now that we have this plan, we do need a body that will kind of oversee these actions. So action 15 is to establish this climate action advisory committee, and they will help review the actions regularly, make sure that we're staying on track, informing of priorities and any important changes that should be made. And the last action there is just policies and policy amendments that kind of go along with that. So after modeling all of those actions and sub-targets and trying to implement what we see as a very green community that runs on renewable energy and walks and shops locally, we can see that when we model our low carbon scenario, the drastic decline in carbon emissions, which is really exciting to see. But it is, by 2050, we still aren't carbon neutral, but it's very promising, and it does show that that is something feasible that the town of Mahone Bay could achieve. So you do see that there is a very small amount left for commercial and transportation emissions, as well as waste emissions. So a lot of this is because we only modeled about 80% transition in the commercial industry. So still leaving some room to work there to transfer all commercial buildings and such over to electrification or reducing their fossil fuel use and emissions. This small amount for waste is really interesting to look at because even though assuming we achieve 100% diversion, this waste emission is actually from things that we've already disposed of. So our landfills will continue to generate that amount of emissions. So going forward, in order to try to achieve the carbon neutrality that we'd like, there is possibilities for carbon offsetting. So if maybe there's an opportunity to overproduce renewable energy and sell it outside the jurisdiction, maybe that can make up for some of our residual emissions. And it also does just show that there is a little bit more work to be done there to finally meet that. And I think this is one of the last slides, so hopefully I haven't been talking on too much. But of course, the last piece to a plan is always monitoring and reporting to make sure that it's actually implemented and it meets our milestone 5 here. So as part of this plan, we do hope to set up the advisory committee, and we hope to have annual progress reports provided to council and just provide a status update, make sure that we're on track, see the measurable differences in the GHG emissions from any actions that we've taken that year, and of course, outlining priority actions for next year. And though these actions are kind of what we can control in our town limits, we know that tackling climate change requires cooperation across jurisdictions, and it's going to take various solutions to meet goals and to mitigate climate change in Nova Scotia as a whole. This plan is meant to be kind of a starting point to propel us forward and to keep us on a track. And it, like I said, technology will always change. There will be things that are more feasible for the town come 5 or 10 years. So it is important to keep this plan somewhat flexible and adaptable as those things come up. And with that, I just wanted to thank everybody who stopped in and joined us this evening, and anybody who watches maybe at a later date that couldn't join us. And I'd be happy to take any questions and just open the floor for any discussion that anybody would like to include.
Okay, question, your action 14, that's greening spaces, park designation. What about residents who have a section of land which is just fallow, it's growing grass? Is there some resource that person can turn to that would be able to maximize the carbon sink of the land?
That's a really good question. Of course, just having it a green space is better than having it as, say, a pavement or a driveway or something. But there's definitely resources out there for homeowners to make their homes as or their properties as sustainable and yeah, just being stewards of it. I can find some of these resources and forward them along to you. I'm not sure of anything that gives you direct directions on how to make it the most efficient carbon sink as possible. But there's definitely little things that we can do here and there to make it better. Like smaller shrubs rather than grass, or trees rather than grass if you plant trees on it or something like that.
Yeah, it's basically, I don't want to get into silviculture, but I'd be willing to plant the odd tree to to improve the carbon sink capabilities.
Yeah, I mean that would certainly, even a tree or two would be better than just grassland. And it's just, I don't think we need to look at these big, I know a lot of these actions are a little bit larger scale, but on a community level and an individual level, the small things that we're able to do on a larger scale, if each person is doing such a small thing, it can make a bigger impact. So definitely, yeah.
I know that Catherine's just getting started, but one of the things we hope to be able to do is provide some more information. So things like how much CO2 you are removing by planting a tree or a shrub, and just ways to recognize people who have done that. And I think the town does quite a good job of celebrating accomplishments. We've got the mayor's newsletter and other opportunities to recognize things that people have done. So Catherine's always going to be looking for stories to share and encourage people.
Okay.
And Catherine, you might want to close your screen share. I see Susan has a hand up, and it can be hard to see when I know you might have to put it back up if there's a question.
That's what I was trying to do. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I think I got it.
Yeah, I have a question. When we moved to Mahone Bay, we were encouraged to take the Mahone Bay Power Pledge, which I did. and I've been doing it for 6 years, and I've talked to many of my friends, and none of them have ever heard of it. Are we still encouraging people to do that? I never see it in the newsletter, and I haven't seen anything about it in the paper. But I checked the website about a month ago, and it's still on the website. And I've been doing this stuff, like doing my laundry on Saturday or Sunday for all these years when it's not even sometimes convenient. I'm still doing it. And I'm thinking, is there any point to continuing this? Because some of it's not much fun, but I do it because I think it's important. Maybe it's not important. I'd like to know.
Yeah, no, I would definitely say it's important. I'm wondering though, Dylan, maybe you can, I know that I've looked at the Power Pledge before, and I know the website is still up. I can't remember the company that runs it. Is it Clean Nova Scotia or Efficiency Nova Scotia?
Yeah, this was efficiency program, I think, and I will admit it does predate both Catherine and I.
Okay.
And bringing things like this back into our program as the town, it obviously works well with the things that we're doing, but to be able to really understand, maybe there are ways now with the better data we have and the more renewable power supply that we have to give residents better guidance. So I think it's awesome that you're doing it. And I think we are going to, if we can get the data on who's participating, which has been part of the challenge, we don't necessarily know who all the participants are. We would like to be able to follow up with everybody. So maybe we can follow up with you about that experience from here. But yeah, I think because we don't run the program, I don't believe Catherine has the actual participant list.
Yeah, but that was why I was wondering actually what organization it was, so that it slipped my mind. I forgot about the Power Pledge, I will admit, but I did look into it a year ago or so. But it would be good now that we have that data set to touch base with that company and see if people from Mahone Bay are still putting data in, and to get that data and make it useful within the town. So I appreciate you mentioning it, and I appreciate you taking the time to put in that data.
I also have another, just not a question, but just a little factoid. 2 years ago, we bought a Toyota plug-in Prius plug-in. And I just want to mention that the car will go, and it just uses household current. So we have an outlet right outside our back door, and we keep it plugged in overnight. It will go all the way to Bridgewater and back on electricity. So we rarely ever have to fill it up. We get gas about every 2 months if we are going further than that. So it's, if you're putting in charging stations, I would say it's probably mostly for tourists, people visiting Mahone Bay. Yeah, because most people have an outlet that they can plug a car into, but we've noticed a huge difference in just saving money from doing it. But certainly going that far on one charge, it'll go about 40 kilometers on one charge.
Okay. Yeah, that is a really great point. And I think a lot of people do have range anxiety about electric vehicles. They think they're going to go somewhere and run out of juice, which is another reason why we want to bring electric vehicle charging stations to Mahone Bay, not just for the tourists, but if people in town, they might be a little bit faster than the home charger. So if you're in a pinch, they might be able to work a little bit faster. I'm not entirely sure on that, but and the progress with electric vehicles. So I'm not sure if yours is a hybrid or not, but some of the newer ones are getting up to 300 kilometers per charge, which is really impressive.
I think I just wanted to add, Catherine, that I know you've done a lot to ask residents and hear about people's usage of vehicles. And I think what Susan mentioned, really, it's exactly what we're finding from people, is that people have range anxiety, but then the vast majority of the actual travel they do is within the county.
Yeah.
And for that, they really don't need to have that kind of anxiety. And perhaps having access to a non-electric vehicle can come in handy, but for a lot of your base travel, you can do it on electricity. So that's really great to hear. You've been doing it, way before it got cool. So so that's great.
I think I saw Greg's hand first, and then I'll go to Casey.
Well, if Casey wants, I've already had a session, so if Casey, no, okay. What I've got is, I'm not an engineer, although I understand engineering principles, but there's a potential energy recovery possibility with our wastewater treatment plant. I believe we just let the water flow out into the ocean without recovering that energy. I think Mahone Bay's in a very unusual situation where most treatment plants are at down at sea or river level, and Mahone Bay's different in that they pump the water all the way up to the top of a hill and then let it flow down. And there's a potential recovering energy there. I just did some quick numbers, and we flow about 680,000 liters per day, and the elevation drop is about a little over 100 feet. And if you just run that through a power generating formula at 90% efficiency, you get about 2 kilowatts of power recovery. Again, I don't know what the cost would be of putting a turbine in the outflow pipe, but there are some cities who do that, like Seattle. Of course, they're dealing with much larger volumes, but it might be a small turbine energy recovery unit might help augment the pumping or run lights at the plant, or it would certainly offset some of the electricity used. So I don't know if that's been addressed at all. I mentioned it to a couple other people in town. I think Catherine, your assistant, I think she came around on a survey last year, and I mentioned it to her then. So I don't know if this has been looked into at all, or if it hasn't, it's not feasible for costs or whatever.
Yeah, it would be something that we probably have to do some sort of feasibility study on, or see if they're, again, not sure how much of a cost, but it is an interesting point, and I have heard of other cities doing it. So it's, definitely something that we can look more into.
Yeah, to me, it's just a waste of energy, is just letting the water run out.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Casey, did you have a question?
Hi, thank you very much. There's a bath time battle going on in the next room with a 3-year-old, so if that takes over, I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess I don't so much have a question as, no, I'll phrase it as a question. You said that you're looking for ways to partner with surrounding municipalities. Can you speak to that a little bit more, please, given that, I'm here looking at this project through that lens?
Yeah, I mean, Lunenburg County, town of Mahone Bay, town of Bridgewater, MODL, we're so close knit that we're very, open to talking about projects. I think Dylan can probably speak more to it than I can, but open to collaborating on projects, open to meeting and discussing these types of initiatives, and where if we can help, if we can learn from you as well, and just building a relationship and partnership on projects going forward, if that's something that comes up.
Yeah, I would happy to jump in and say that I very much agree with Catherine on the opportunities. There have been a few areas that we have had staff level conversations. I think the key thing that's been acknowledged is the need to establish an actual ongoing opportunity for dialogue and sharing on environmental initiatives, which is really something we're enthusiastic about MODL's more recent commitments in that area that we've been hearing about. So that will bring the conversation a little bit broader, because town of Bridgewater and town of Mahone Bay have a number of shared, areas that we're researching together. But so often, of course, the geography of it means that MODL would be an awesome partner for Mahone Bay and initiatives like that. And I know one that we specifically looked at together, and I don't believe it didn't get provincial support, but there's more opportunities down the road, are ride sharing and car sharing studies. And so I know that was of interest to Mayor Bolivar Gedson in the past, and is probably still on the list there. And that's another area to think about.
Mhm. Okay, well, that's wonderful. I echo your wish for collaboration and open communication. We're having let me see, our sustainability committee is meeting for the first time, I think, at the end of this month, and we're having a workshop to bring together the committee members tomorrow. So I'll bring this information with me. If there's anything specific you'd like me to bring to the committee, just please forward it along to myself or to our sustainability planner.
Okay, great. And Casey, I can send along. I'm not sure if I have your email or not, but I
Yep,
can
I
put,
just
I'll
sent
put
it
my
to you
contact information.
Just sent it
in
to you in the chat, actually, and I don't want to hijack your public meeting. I just wanted to make sure that, I got my 2 cents in. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. Susan?
I have another question. You may have addressed this already, so forgive me. I'm wondering if you have any statistics on how many households in Mahone Bay have gone through the evaluation for the heat pump? And if you do have that, do you have any like average cost? Or haven't you not figured that out? I'm wondering because we had it done and the total came to $14,400, and that was more than we were prepared to put toward it, because of our age. Paul, my husband, is 88 and I'm 77. So I had heard that if you do this program and you sell your residence or whatever, that expense is passed on to the next person, the buyer or something like that. Maybe I have that wrong, but I was just kind of curious about that.
Yeah, we do have statistics on how many people have inquired through the program, but I don't know what the average cost would be. So our area, the Alternative Resource Energy Authority, the program is kind of run through them with Atlantic Heating and Cooling, and they're able to offer this with the town of Mahone Bay, but they have those numbers. But yeah, $14,000, it does seem like that would be higher. I think the average heat pump is about $4,000. So I'm not sure if you have more heads or multiple units that you were planning to put in. But it probably wouldn't hurt if I don't know if you've contacted them back to see if there were if there were different units or different options available to you, or if that was the only one that they still in, you can jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Because I'm sure you would jog your memory too, because you're seeing Susan here. You're probably thinking of the civic address or something. When I know we talked about this one was you guys have an oil furnace and forced air. Was it? Yeah, and so it was the I think the wall mounted units where you don't have forced air systems have a really consistent price. And so we've had I think as of this month's report, we've had 50 follow-up home investigations, and I think 5 completed installations, maybe a couple more by now. But I think that generally the completed installations have been those single wall mount units. So where you have that system, it is a more complicated system. I know that we've kind of made a note about those ones because this is the first year, well, really only the first couple of months of the home program, and anything outside of the wall mount, I think we are going to have to do a little bit more looking into how we can make the program fit better for people. And hopefully as we go, we'll have those kind of learning opportunities. There is another program that we're working on having to do with oil furnaces, and it's an electric thermal storage program, but it's in a very early pilot stage, as referenced in the depths of Catherine's report. And so, that may be another option that would be a good fit for some people with an oil furnace system. But as you know, any of these things could be a bit of a burden on a home if they're newly installed, and then, but we're happy to keep working with you on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Dylan. Yeah, personally with my own home, we did get a quote as well for just a mini split, one head upstairs, and then a ducted heat pump, which uses the furnace and the existing ductwork. But because they would have had to replace the ductwork anyway, so it was going to be very expensive for us as well to do that. So we just did the mini split option, which works for us. But every home requires something a little different. So yeah, we're very happy to keep working with you on that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, discussion points? See, the little one wants to join in on the talk. Well, yeah, if there's no other questions now, I guess we can kind of wrap it up for the evening.
Catherine, it's Kelly.
Oh, hi.
I sent a question through the chat. Do you
Okay.
see it there? I can read it to you if you can't see it.
It's through the YouTube chat. Then I think Catherine and I were looking at the in-room chat. Catherine, are you also looking?
No,
at the
we're not
chat?
on YouTube. We're not on YouTube, so it's just.
Oh, I don't see anything in the in-room chat.
Yeah, I see.
It's just directly to Catherine.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see.
I was trying to monitor that to be helpful, but I didn't see it.
Yeah. Will the turbines be replaced once past their useful life, and are there opportunities to input comments? As far as the wind farm goes, I think there's probably still 20, maybe 30 years on that before they would need to be replaced. And I don't think I can speak to what would happen in that time frame. But certainly we would hope that at the end of the LRSO's lifetime that it would continue going in some form or the other. But yeah, again, it's hard for me to speak that far in the future. And as far as opportunities to input comments, absolutely. If you're talking about comments for this plan, the plan is up on the town website. It's under the utility section of the website. There's a comment form there if you want to review the plan and provide comments through that comment form, or you can also email any comments to climate@townofmahonebay.ca. So that's an email address that will come to me, and all of the comments will be compiled and put into a report, and any adjustments will be made to the plan that might be needed. Yeah, and oh, yes, it says Ann Wilson.
Yeah, I just changed my agenda. I'm wondering, first of all, I want to tell you how appreciative I am of your efforts to advertise this, and also the plan itself. It's an excellent start, I think, for GHG reductions, and hopefully there will be more opportunities in the near future to implement more. My specific concern is to implement opportunities under the rough heading biomass. I think we're missing out on a lot of opportunities there. And I know there are a lot of concerns about biomass in the province, but I read that as being competing with the Brooklyn Energy Center and also the Port Hawkesbury Mill, where they're using incredible amounts of wood. That's my reading on it, and I'll be contacting the town about these in the future. And I thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback and thank you for joining us this evening. And just to your point, there was a gentleman, actually, I just had a meeting with him maybe a week or two ago. He just moved to town, but he's also interested in bioheats and that sort of thing. So it's something that we're aware of and looking into. I'm not sure how many projects might be feasible for Mahone Bay, but something that is definitely still on our radar for other renewable opportunities.
Yeah, I would see it primarily at the scale of Lunenburg County, but I think there might be some opportunities through modal.
Yeah, something that we can keep in collaboration with surrounding. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thanks so much. I know.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So yeah, if there's no further questions, I'm happy to let you all enjoy the rest of your evening. And if anything else comes up, you want to add any more comments or have any questions, please reach out. Again, you can climb it at townofmahonebay.ca.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being
Catherine.
here, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Great to see you. Have a good night.
Thank you.